Welcome everyone. We're excited for COP30 out of Belém in Brazil, just in the Amazon. But our panelists are not. So we're saving on our global footprint, our carbon footprint, and we're excited to have Camille Grun, Giovanni Di Franceschi, and we're going to have a very robust conversation. Grant Blaisdell is just joining us now. And so thought I'd start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves, because you can do a far better job than I in terms of how you define abundance, where your abundance came from, respectively, and the ways in which you have really participated in this world over the years. So, just a general introduction would be great. Camille, can we start with you, please?
Okay. Hello, my name is Kamil Grund. I'm the founder of Davos Club, also shareholder in our family transport international company. And for me, abundance, it's like that we must, it's different because who we ask. Because, for example, for the African community, abundance is like where they don't have food, where they don't have shelters. It's like surviving. It's like for them to eat, to have opportunity to give children to school, to have some kind like normal life. And for example, for the small, big, and medium family offices, abundance is like that to secure, protect what they got, but they also give the opportunity to look further, to look for the opportunities to give the future generation be protect, secure, and find investments, assets that will give the long term of the generation. And also, we must say that another example is that abundance for the ultra wealthy family, for the ultra wealthy individual, is totally different because for them, it's like that they are making a legacy, but they are also influence others. They can be a leader for the good or can be leader for the bad because they, with their influence, with the power, with the connection in politics, etc., can make a really difference, making that other family offices, to other individuals, other people who follow them to make a really change. And also, I think the abundance, it's like not pursue the wealth as the target, but to change the mindset that is a tool to make an impact. Because when we, by our move nowadays, we create the future of our generations, of our kids, but we must remember that we create the future for all humans, for all nature, for all nature, animals. So I think this is from my side what I see this abundance is nowadays.
Great. Thank you so much, Camille, for such a robust answer and super thoughtful. Grant, can you tell us, even linking back to your grandfather in Poland and how this idea of abundance has come about in your family culture and a little bit about yourself, please?
Thanks for tying it in and bringing up something so specific regarding my grandfather. So quickly about me, I'm Grant Blaisdell. I'm CEO and co-founder at Copernic Space. We're a pioneering platform and marketplace that is turning the space market into a digital asset class and democratizing access, benefits, and wealth, abundance of wealth that will be created through the space economy and the space asset class. I'm also a partner in Big Idea, Tixie, and Clout Festival, which is a music and entertainment holding company that does some of the biggest music festivals in Central Europe. Also, a ticketing app attached to it, which is Tixie. Yeah, actually, interesting question tying it to my grandfather because, when he was building the original polar space program in the 70s and 80s, he was doing so through a kind of geopolitical sphere that didn't have the same abundance, so to say, of resources and access that, let's say, his counterparts at NASA had. So I think one of the reasons for Copernic Space to exist once again is to not just be able to scale and create more value and abundance of value through the space economy, but also to kind of spread that around. And back to the democratization statement is whether you're a fund with $1 billion or you're a guy with $100 on his couch, that you have access to the same sort of potential to build that for yourself or to participate in what's going to be the largest new asset class of this century. And also, kind of as a, let's say, a deeper maybe side comment, I think, abundance is has a few different verticals to put it in kind of business terms, which there's obviously the material and the financial side of abundance, but I think it's hard to argue that, a majority of the West or the US lacks material abundance. I think a lot of times what it's lacking is more of a spiritual sort of health and abundance. I think that's very kind of visible in society and how things are going right now. But part of that, I think, actually comes through giving purpose and participation in things that people have passion for, right? So with what I do as an individual, but especially at Copernic Space, um, it's to build a new idea of abundance, which space provides, that creates real solutions that benefit life on Earth, but also provide an alley for countless millions of individuals around Earth to participate in something they've always been passionate about and have an actual stake and ownership in it that can create further abundance for them as individuals, both materially as well as maybe spiritually or in their soul and their emotions.
Great. Thank you for that, Grant. Giovanni, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in terms of as a hedge fund manager and how your unconventional approach is leading to abundance and a little bit about your background, please.
Well, first of all, I'm not a hedge fund manager. I'm the portfolio manager for a single family office. So I don't make direct investment decisions. I make allocations. So I pick investment managers and theses. Um, my concern is that we tend to conflate or inflate our fears, and our greed. So as it relates to abundance, I think that we have been fooled by the randomness. To quote Nisam Taleb, we've been fooled by the randomness of cheap energy. I think energy is too cheap, at least in the US, because if Europe can thrive with the price of oil and gas being higher per liter than it is per gallon in the US, then clearly advanced and first world economies can thrive with much higher energy prices. And so I fear that when we get, especially in America and first world countries, when we get disappointed by our assumptions, let's say 2008 and 9, our assumption is that real estate is a safe asset, which is why banks issued loans to people who could not afford their mortgages because they figured that if you didn't pay the mortgage, they could just they could foreclose on the asset and not lose any money because it's real estate and you just can't lose. Unfortunately, I fear that we've made essentially the same mistake, so history is not repeating itself. It's at the very least rhyming, if not almost exactly repeating itself, just in a different form and structure with the debt markets as they are today. I fear that if you want to change the world and make it a better place, as to quote Michael Jackson, take a look at yourself and make the change. It is easy when you have abundance to make your own choices and sacrifice some of that abundance. But the majority of the world is not living in abundance. They're living in scarcity, at least in a mindset. And there's plenty of those who have a scarcity mindset in the advanced world. So if we are concerned about environmental change and the distribution of natural assets amongst the population, then an abundance mindset, I am concerned, does not sufficiently value and appreciate the scarcity of an asset, that our most prized assets that we take for granted, which is essentially energy and water. So, there we go.
Well, thank you for that. And can I ask each of you, and we'll start with Camille, this dovetails into what Grant was talking about in terms of the structure and the inspiration of his grandfather. For you, Camille, and your family, where does this come from? This is intergenerational. Where does this commitment to the larger community, and the idea of sharing the abundance, how does it run through? Is it a DNA thing? Is it taught? How do you receive this and then impart it?
So the value goes from my father, who teach me, because we are the young generation of the young family office, we can say. So we don't have so much history behind us. And this goes from the lessons my father teach me, how to speak with people, how to look at people, how to live with people, and my observation from many years. That's why I created at first the Ekoshumi community, and then the Davos Club, where I from many years make introduction in many projects, totally non-profit, because I thought that this is that at first I was working, we have a company where we are looking for the investors for the startup projects. And I found that there is something wrong in this world, because there is lots of capital which goes to the totally stupid ideas, etc. But it's making a bubble, and the investors are happy because they are sell the shares and etc. But there are lots of ideas which are too good to be on to go to people, that like the situation where remind me the light bulb situation, where the first light bulbs can be like 10,000 hours working, giving light to people, but the companies Philips, Osram, etc. make the cooperation to make that this light give a scientist order to make that this light will only have 1,000 hours to give a light. And this situation nowadays is happening in many areas. And that's why when I going to the innovators, and I see, for example, Polish scientists discovers from the university, they discover the braking pads. They discover the material which can be in braking pads, that, like, for example, now is 50,000 of making brakes, but their material is making almost not destroying. And when I speak with the friends who are from the automotive industry, who have factories, and I told them that look at this innovation, you will destroy the competitors. But they told me, yes, but what next? We sell one this to the client, and we can go sell another one. And then that's why I saw the big gap in the because there are lots of very great scientists, great innovators in the world, but they can't go to the right people, because the money is there, but people, most of people who have got those money don't want to invest in this. So that's why I create those communities. When I share my contacts with people, make that people other share contacts, and something is making a change, because greed, as Ilya once told, is the main problem of this world. That we looking, for example, now when we people invest, they prefer invest another to ChatGPT, for example, for OpenAI, from different ways, when it's like $500 billion, because they think it will bring them lots of money. not to invest in products, in things like, for example, now in Brazil, where it's a top, it's a project that will want to tokenize the rainforest, to protect rainforest. And nobody talk about this project. When I see that must be some kind of change to find good ideas, good idols to make a good change for the world. And this is how I make this situation where I am now.
Thank you for that, Camille. Grant, from your perspective, is this idea of abundance to create the multiplier effect for wealth, for knowledge, for the best ways of living? Is this something that you got in your DNA? Is this something that was taught to you, and how do you extend it to others as well?
Sorry, my son just walked in. Yeah, well, listen, I have one reason I have a particular focus on space is because I think it's, the most important market when it comes to that. You can look at it through a bunch of different sort of avenues. I'm sure a lot of you have seen recently this big investment and hype into putting data centers into space, right? So how do we alleviate kind of the big drains that might, let's say, even limit abundance on Earth through kind of eating up resources by utilizing, an abundant resource, which is space. I call it the infinite economy, right? So over the next decades, what you're going to see is a completely different change of the paradigm when it comes to resources. Giovanni was talking about energy, right? So one of the main reasons that these guys, these billionaires are pumping, money into this is because it's the most abundant energy source that we haven't learned to fully take advantage of on Earth. And even the idea of solar panels in the first place comes from space applications on satellites. So for me, it's about actually creating, the financial infrastructure in the marketplace that facilitates and enables all of that. So for me, it's, I'm kind of hyper focused on something that might seem relatively niche in a certain way, but in reality, I think the big communication that the space has kind of failed in is that a lot of the most important technological and scientific advancements, solutions over the past 60 years have some origination point in space. And now, this is a market that is privatized, can be made accessible to the actual broader commercial, financial, and even consumer market in a lot of ways that can scale that up and create a new idea of abundance. But I actually really like what, kind of Giovanni said, which is, sometimes we have to look at things that, our economics is also based off scarcity and nothing is really kind of infinite here on Earth, right? So we need to start looking if you're in the privileged position. I especially mean like high net worth individuals, people that want to create the future and real positive change broadly beyond just investing in the latest AI hype. Is to use that money to, invest into longer term solutions, the entrepreneurs, the visionaries that are pushing behind it. Obviously, there has to be some incentive mechanisms behind it. But I think the future of abundance is built by new asset classes, new solutions, and particularly space. And to what I said earlier, I think and it also relates to what Giovanni said, which is, kind of this kind of spiritual, soulful end look towards abundance, which I think we've become very, mm, obviously consumerism would be a word that fits it, but I think that we need to figure out a balance within, societies by themselves. Not that the government is going to impose these, strict limitations on individuals, families, et cetera, per se, but that within ourselves, we have to figure out what's abundance for us internally. I think a lot of people are striving for things that aren't necessarily going to make them abundantly feel better or be happier as people or create a society that's healthier. I think there's, for example, there's just a lot of proof that, even blue collar workers actually are more satisfied with their life in a lot of ways than white collar workers or people with, huge access to abundant wealth or financial means. So I think there's a balance that we have to find in all of that. I think one reason the world's gotten itself into a predicament is because it's kind of chasing growth and scale at all costs. Like that's the end metric that you always have to show. And I don't think that's a viable long-term approach. And once again, I think that's a reflection of something deeper within ourselves and how we've been kind of taught how to think. So once again, I know I'm kind of focusing on the space thing outside of the three generation family legacy around it. I look at it that way because once again, I view it as at least the abundance, the material, the technological innovative solution to solve a lot of the key issues that we're looking to on Earth. And so, half of what I do is kind of this education curve and communicating that fact behind things and not just, look, the billionaires are investing in space. Space is the next big thing. It's like, no, space has provided these tangible results. Look at what Starlink has been able to do the past couple years, providing access to connectivity in areas that wasn't really possible before, would have to create massive physical infrastructure on Earth, destroy the environment around it to do so, to, what's going to be happening around food or farm or medicine. Recently, they discovered, some sort of new cancer sort of solution. Why? Because space is providing an environment where you just can't do things like you do on Earth. So I'm sure there's a bunch of other things I can add to it, but I think once again, it's not just material abundance we need to look for. I think it's something deeper.
Thank you for that, Grant. Giovanni, from your perspective, where did you get your penchant for abundance, and how is it being transferred to the next generation from that ethos that kind of makes you who you are?
Well, to be honest, um, I want to put something into perspective. I was not educated with a sense of abundance. Okay. So my grandfather on my father's side is a marquis in Italy. So he acquiesced to the king of Italy, who acquiesced to Mussolini. So they lost power and wealth as a result of being on the wrong side of history there. And my, grandfather on my mother's side owned coal mines in Czechoslovakia. They were a Jewish family, and they lost their wealth with, Germany's Nazis' invasion of Czechoslovakia. So, I was raised with, I would say, more of a poverty mindset. My father says to me, there's no such thing as old money and new money. There's just new. So there's new money, and old money is new poor. So new money has an abundance mindset. I can make money, I can spend money because I can always make more money. And old money is, my grandfather was very, very rich. My father is very rich. I'm just rich, and my child will be slightly less rich. So my parents were very concerned with raising a spoiled little brat. So I was not raised with an abundance mindset. I was raised with a mindset of the cyclical nature of abundance and scarcity, that you can choose your path in life, that if you rely too much on what, your lineage and your abundance in the past, it may be gone in the future. and that you can create, your new future. So I would not say that I was raised with an abundance mindset. I was raised far more with a scarcity mindset of sort of managing limited resources and be careful of how things can, beyond your control, can impact your life. Changes in government, environments, and so society, such that you can lose what you've got. So I wouldn't say I have an abundance mindset.
Thank you for that. And a fascinating history. Let me ask you, come back to you on this same topic, and then we're going in reverse order. So Giovanni, if you could answer first. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Agree or disagree, and why?
Well, I am very concerned that those people who wish to manage the limited resources on Earth seek to manage them, not, uh, industrial farming, um, polluting the environment, and so on and so forth. Um, to put into perspective, I think that many of the objectives of environmentalists are well intentioned, but they will cause harm to society. If we limit or if we try to stop drilling for oil, we will create a scarcity of oil, which would only drive the price of oil up, negatively impact all people's lives, and create even more incentives for us to hang on to the energy source that we have today. I think I think what makes America great is what Republicans called government waste. Okay. So to put things into perspective, if Khrushchev had not taken off his shoe and banged the table, then America, Khrushchev and Kennedy probably would not have gotten into a pissing contest about getting to the moon. And had we not got into a pissing contest about getting to the moon, we probably wouldn't have Teflon nonstick pans, Tempur-Pedic beds, and Copernic space. Okay. So the benefits of so-called wasteful spending are quite significant. And let's just sort of take Biden and an Inflation Reduction Act, which essentially acknowledges that punishing polluters for polluting does not achieve the desired goals because the polluters either spend money fighting the pollution regulations, or they just spend money paying the penalties and just add it to the cost of doing business. Whereas with the Inflation Reduction Act, it acknowledges that the polluters know best how not to pollute. So rather than punishing them for polluting, why not pay them to stop polluting? And so as it relates to natural gas in oil and gas from fracking, essentially it sort of says, prove to us there was pollution, prove to us there is no longer any pollution, and send us the bill. And so, I moved to sort of Tulsa, Oklahoma from, San Diego and from Monaco. So I literally went, not to the most pleasant place on earth for me to live, because I am liberal and Oklahoma is extremely conservative. So I really went there for the opportunity, but I went there because of the Inflation Reduction Act. It created opportunity, and that opportunity was created by the government. And the government did the antithesis of what environmentalists would want, which was, they would want the government to regulate and to penalize pollution. And the Inflation Reduction Act essentially almost incentivized, seemingly at face value, it seemed like it incentivized pollution, but in reality, it attracted foreign capital, into an industry that has created America to be energy independent. And, granted, we now have the Trump administration. He hasn't thrown out the baby with the bathwater with respects to the Inflation Reduction Act, because it does have Biden cooties on it, but it has slowed down the sort of a rollout of that infrastructure, because there is an air of uncertainty as to whether this will continue. But so that's what I'm trying to say, is that the environmentalists have good intentions, but it is not achieving the desired goals. Whereas doing something that is seemingly ill-intentioned, which is incentivizing oil and gas and natural gas, is in fact achieving the desired goals, which is minimizing pollution and the impact on the environment.
Thank you for that, Grant. Do you think the road to hell is paved with good intentions?
Yeah, I don't, whatever character you want to look at in history that's viewed as, one of the worst or et cetera, it's hard to argue that they didn't think themselves that they were doing the right thing. So that's one thing around that. To what Giovanni said, like, for example, the other day in Congress, there's a whole discussion around chemtrails and manipulating the weather, et cetera. And ends up that's been happening for decades in reality. And one company that was doing it, they were environmentalist kind of focused company, and what they were doing was actually spraying like metallic aerosol into the atmosphere. Why? Because they said they were reflecting sunlight to prevent global warming. That's what they were doing, right? When in reality, they're providing a lot of more short term, so to say, negatives by just spraying aerosol into the atmosphere. So, the question is when do you have kind of the self-reflections? You're like, okay, or am I doing this for the right reasons? Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard question to answer in just like a simple yes or no. But I think, yeah, generally that is the case, to like Giovanni's backstory. I'm sure Camille has something similar. My family was in Lviv, what is now Lviv, Ukraine, for 400 years, kind of family of educators and entrepreneurs, built something over about a 300, 400-year span. And that was all taken away in an instant and literally get out. Everything is now ours, et cetera. And it's hard to argue that, the vision that went behind doing that to my family didn't have some sort of well-intentioned aspect. I think obviously the environmentalist sort of thing is in the modern times is kind of a good example around that. I also think there's some sort of balance that needs to be played once again. I don't think like a full-on libertarian out approach is exactly what's gonna work around it. But I think that comes back to kind of the question of just humanity. It's like, okay, well, who actually thinks that they're doing wrong? I think there's very few people that are acting knowing and believing that they're doing the wrong thing. They justify it, at minimum, they justify it in their head. But most of the time it's they actually think they're doing the right thing overall. So you can look at even, kind of the refugee crisis that happened over the past decade or so. Is like, obviously, I think people have very good intentions. The question is, what's that doing to other people? What kind of end result is that going to provide, for society as a whole? So, yeah, generally, yes.
All righty. Thank you for that. Camille, is the road to hell paved with good intentions? And that is in essence saying, for all our attempts for some of us to do good, that are the result sometimes is questionable.
So at first, I must agree with Giovanni and Grant, because really nowadays, also like for example with the chemtrails, that the question at first to your question is, are really good intentions? Because when we believe that those people don't have other agenda in their head and they really do what they do, so we can say that they good intentions are from start bad for the humanity, for the people. Like for example, with the climate, the Europe is the most uh, tax region of the world. The China and US produce more carbon or whatever we call the pollution, but the Europe is making so less. But I'm from Europe, but the European Union wants to tax citizens in Europe for everything. And this goes to the, for example, direction that the automotive industry is now in very weak condition. They can't compare to the China factories, China companies. And now there is the like paradox that European automotive company go in the joint venture with the Chinese companies, or for example, buy carbon credits for Tesla to make a produce in Europe and give a job to the thousands, almost million of people to in Europe, because it's the producing the car, producing the parts, producing the other things. And now the European Union say, okay, you are in the very bad condition. Now we will protect you by giving the 2000 K or something tariff on China cars, where they are with prices like too much less than European, and with the full spectrum of the equipment. So this, for example, situation is like that. The supposed, I think, we can say that they have good intention. Some people, which I speak with, people say that the intention never was good, but this good intention put the automotive industry to the hell, because in Europe, and now they want to make taxes on other things, and we European citizens will be taxes on many things by the climate. But the pollution makes lots of more China and more US. So this example makes this is good intention make to the hell. And I think those kinds of examples, when we look how everything is going on, we can find more. So I will say like that: if there are really good intention and check if this not harm the people, not harm the industry, not harm the animals, not harm the everything, it will be hard to make that goes to hell. But if the intentions are not pure, are not checked with everything, how it react, but only some lobby make it or other direction, it definitely go to hell.
Well, thank you for your candor. We've only got 3 minutes left in the panel, so I'm going to ask each of you.
Can I just add one quick statement, maybe one sentence to that? Yeah, so this is something a term I defined before kind of Musk came out and gave it a different term. So, I operate with a lot of entrepreneurs in Poland and Central Eastern Europe. I say they have something I call toxic humility, which they don't really know how to sell themselves, which is a big thing that makes like Americans very special in business. It's not the IQ, it's like how we present things. But on the flip end of that, what the West has been going through is something I call toxic empathy, which is that we're going to, kind of sell this empathetic, like I'm from Los Angeles, right? And we spend billions of dollars on the homeless issue every single year, and homelessness has only gotten up. It's created a very corrupt system of people enriching themselves off, NGOs, charity sort of work. So it comes back to kind of that soul thing that I was talking about earlier. It's like, okay, well, it just comes back to our good intentions pave the road to hell. In this case, we have this toxic empathy that is kind of destroying us from within, which great communist parties throughout history, and in this case, China, that's actually how they get you, is like you destroy yourself from within by putting in all these sort of emotional, ideological things within your society. So just another little antidote to what you were saying.
Thank you. I guess